Why? The most dangerous leaders are the ones you never see. There's a pattern emerging in Silicon Valley that nobody's talking about. The executives accumulating the most power aren't the ones giving TED Talks, posting daily on LinkedIn, or appearing in every board meeting. They're the ones who've perfected the art of strategic vanishing. Reed Hastings disappears for months into African safari lodges, unreachable even for Netflix board emergencies. During his absences, the company doesn't collapse, it thrives. Stock prices climb, decisions get made. The machine runs smoother without him. That's not coincidence. That's weaponized absence. Power Law 16 teaches us that absence increases respect and honor. But here's what Robert Greene didn't fully spell out. Calculated disappearance isn't just about creating scarcity. It's about forcing your organization to develop immunity to your presence. Every time you're not there and things still work, you prove you're building something bigger than yourself. Every time you vanish and return to find progress, you've created leaders instead of followers. That's multiplication of force, not delegation. Ancient Viking warlords had a brutal tradition. They disappear before major battles, leaving their commanders in charge. If the battle was won without them, those commanders earn status but remain loyal. If the battle was lost, the warlord returned to save the situation, cementing their necessity. Strategic absence as both test and trap. Modern CEOs are running the same play in boardrooms instead of battlefields. They vanish to see who rises, who crumbles, who betrays. Here's the psychological warfare happening. When you're constantly available, you become a crutch. Your team stops developing decision-making muscles because you're always there to flex yours. They bring you problems instead of solutions because they know you'll solve them. Your presence breeds dependency. Your absence breeds capability. But you have to be ruthless enough to let people fail in your absence. That's where most leaders crack. There's a conspiracy theory in executive circles that top-tier CEOs are trained in these techniques by shadowy consulting firms that never advertise their services, firms that teach the dark arts of organizational control through strategic abandonment. Real or not, the results are identical. Leaders who understand that omnipresence is weakness disguised as strength. Oprah Winfrey built her empire by disappearing at peak moments. Right when her show was biggest, she'd vanish for spiritual retreats that lasted months. Her team panicked initially, then performed beyond expectations. She'd return with fresh vision while they'd return with proven independence. That's not balance. That's calculated multiplication of power through enforced growth. Devastating practical action. Identify your organization's biggest recurring crisis. Next time it emerges, don't solve it. Disappear instead. Make yourself unavailable for 48 hours minimum. Force your team to navigate it without you. Some will surprise you. Some will disappoint you. Both revelations are valuable intelligence for restructuring power distribution. If you've ever felt trapped by being indispensable, drop ghost in the comments. What responsibility are you clinging to that's actually shrinking your power? Hit that like button if the idea of disappearing to gain strength resonates. Subscribe because the next technique reveals why the most feared leaders never explain their absences, how silence becomes the ultimate corporate weapon. Corporate culture worships visibility, productivity, theater, performance for cameras, everyone trying to be seen, heard, noticed. Meanwhile, a different breed of executive is playing an entirely separate game. They're mastering invisibility as competitive advantage, and it's making them untouchable. Sheryl Sandberg, during her peak years at Facebook, would vanish into deep work sabbaticals where even Mark Zuckerberg couldn't reach her. No emails, no calls, complete radio silence. The company didn't just survive these blackouts, it thrived during them because her team knew she'd eventually return and evaluate everything. That future judgment created present excellence. Fear of the returning ghost made everyone sharper. Power Law 3 warns us, conceal your intentions. Constant visibility makes you readable, predictable, weak. When you disappear without explanation, nobody knows what you're plotting. Are you negotiating a merger? Planning layoffs? Developing a new strategy? The uncertainty creates anxiety that works in your favor. People fill the void with their own paranoia, which makes them easier to manage when you resurface. There's a dark pattern in how tech billionaires coordinate their disappearances. When multiple titans go dark simultaneously, markets move, speculation explodes. Some claim they're meeting in secret locations to divide territories. Others say it's coordinated psychological operations against competitors. The truth doesn't matter. The effect does. Mystery generates influence. Buddhist monasteries have a tradition called the long silence, where masters disappear for years without warning. Disciples must continue without guidance, developing their own wisdom or failing completely. When the master returns, they can instantly see who evolved and who stagnated. Corporate CEOs are running this exact experiment with quarterly disappearances instead of yearly ones. Your absence reveals truth that your presence always obscures. Ginni Rometty transformed IBM by implementing executive blackout windows, where senior leadership was simultaneously unreachable. Initially, middle management panicked. Then they started making decisions independently. Problem-solving accelerated. Innovation increased. The absence of executive hovering created space for actual leadership development. She wasn't abandoning ship. She was building captains. Lethal practical action. Create a personal, untouchable protocol for 2 consecutive days every month. During these windows, you're completely off-grid. No exceptions. No emergencies. Track what happens in your absence through indirect channels. Who tries desperately to reach you? Why? Who solves problems independently? Who collapses? Use this intelligence to permanently redistribute responsibilities. Type shadow in the comments. If you're realizing that being everywhere is making you matter nowhere, where are you over-present when you should be strategically absent? Leave a like. If these tactics are fundamentally shifting how you think about leadership, subscribe because I'm about to expose the psychological mechanism that makes people value what they can't access. What if your accessibility is destroying your authority? The uncomfortable truth. You're training people to disrespect you. Every instant reply, every dropped plan to attend someone else's emergency, every time you're available on demand. You're teaching the world that your time has no value, that your presence is abundant, that you're disposable. Meanwhile, ghost CEOs are running the opposite program, treating their time like plutonium, rare and dangerous to access. Mark Benioff at Salesforce implemented something controversial. CEO disappearance cycles, where he's completely unreachable for weeks. Not just hard to reach, literally impossible. The first few cycles nearly triggered board interventions. Then something shifted. The company stopped escalating minor issues. Leaders started thinking strategically instead of tactically. His absence forced organizational maturity that his presence was preventing. Law 25 demands we recreate ourselves constantly. But here's the hidden method. Disappear completely. Undergo radical transformation. Return as someone unexpected. Some executives use long absences to learn entirely new industries, develop unexpected skills, return with perspectives nobody anticipated. The absence provides cover for metamorphosis that would be impossible under constant observation. There's a concept from ancient Spartan warfare called the absent king strategy. Spartan kings would occasionally vanish from their armies for days during campaigns. Soldiers initially feared abandonment. Then they realized the king was testing them. When he returned, he knew exactly who maintained discipline, who panicked, who tried to seize power. Absence as intelligence gathering. Modern executives are running this play in corporate settings. The darkest aspect, strategic absence, lets you observe the game from outside. When you're playing, you have blind spots. When you're absent, you see everything. Alliances forming, betrayals brewing, incompetence exposing itself. You return with informational advantage that constant presence never reveals. You're not abandoning your position. You're gaining perspective that's only possible from distance. Research from the 70s on artificial scarcity showed people pay up to 400% more for items made arbitrarily difficult to obtain, even when they're identical to easily available ones. Your time follows the same brutal economic law. When you're always available, you're the common shelf item. When you disappear strategically, you become the rare object everyone desperately wants. Relentless practical action. Institute monthly ghost periods where you're completely inaccessible. No exceptions. During these periods, observe from outside, through secondary sources, what unfolds in your absence. Who attempts to reach you? For what? Who solves problems alone? Who collapses? Use this intelligence to completely recalibrate where your power is poorly invested. Write void in the comments if you're seeing that being present everywhere is preventing you from seeing the complete game. Where do you need to create strategic absence to gain real perspective? Drop a like if these tactics are revealing uncomfortable truths about how you distribute your presence. Subscribe because I'm about to expose the final method CEOs use to make their absence worth more than 10 people's presence. When your absence becomes more valuable than your presence, the final level isn't just disappearing. It's making your absence actively work for you, creating value, moving pieces, shifting dynamics while you're literally doing nothing. Sounds impossible. It's exactly what separates common leaders from CEOs who control empires while sleeping. Jensen Huang at NVIDIA implements something radical, silence weeks, where he vanishes completely while the company faces critical decisions. Initially interpreted as abandonment, the pattern became clear. Every disappearance preceded breakthrough strategic moves. He wasn't escaping. He was processing information at depths that constant presence doesn't allow. The absence wasn't vacation. It was incubation of transformation. Here's the shadow mechanic. When you disappear, people internalize your voice. They ask themselves, what would they do? How would they react? You become a permanent mental presence, an internal advisor living in people's heads. It's corporate telepathic control. You don't need to be there. They carry a version of you that guides them even in your physical absence. Embodied power without present body. There's a fascinating conspiracy theory. Some CEOs don't disappear to rest, but to observe from afar through surveillance systems nobody knows about. Hidden cameras, communication monitors, loyal informants. They create the illusion of absence while maintaining total vision. Real or not, the psychological effect is identical. Nobody knows when they're being watched, so they behave as if they always are. Law 48, the most controversial, says, assume formlessness. Don't be definable. Constant presence makes you definable. Patterns emerge, weaknesses expose. But when you're a ghost, you become fluid, indefinable, impossible to predict or manipulate. Your enemies don't know how to attack what they can't locate. Your allies don't know how to betray who they can't pin down in commitments. Ancient Chinese strategists practiced something called the art of the empty fortress. They'd occasionally abandon their power positions completely, live as hermits for months, letting others assume control. When they returned, they had absolute clarity about who was loyal, who was competent, who was dangerous. The empty fortress revealed truths that the occupied fortress always concealed. Final and irreversible practical action. Disappear completely for 1 week without preparing your team. Don't delegate. Don't organize. Don't facilitate. Just vanish. Upon return, identify 3 systems or processes that failed in your absence. These are the systems holding you prisoner. Eliminate or rebuild them until your absence is irrelevant. Then disappear for 2 weeks. Continue this cycle until your presence is optional, not mandatory. Drop ethereal in the comments if you're ready to become a strategic ghost. What's the biggest availability trap keeping you visible when you should be invisible? Like this video if these techniques fundamentally changed how you see power and presence. Subscribe because nobody else is revealing these counterintuitive strategies from the most powerful CEOs on the planet. And share this with someone who's working themselves to death while losing power in the process.